Thank you, Terry and Ashley. Violin is a very haunting instrument, isn't it? It really touches our soul in a lot of ways. Today in the traditional Christian liturgy is what we call Palm Sunday. It is the day when we honor and celebrate Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem. But you know, unless you understand what is the foundational reason for Jesus going to Jerusalem, it just sounds like another adventure, another trip. And there was a definite purpose, there was a definite intention for Jesus to go. And so that is what we've been studying about in our journey through the book of Exodus, that Jesus was actually going to celebrate Passover with his disciples. They were going to the temple to sacrifice, as did every upstanding Jew at that point in time. And Jesus said something that is really important here. He said, I came to fulfill the law, not to abolish it. I came to fulfill the law and not to abolish it. So something is happening, something behind the scenes when Jesus goes into Jerusalem. It's not just, come on guys, let's go from Galilee and let's go celebrate Passover. There was far more happening in this moment that we want to look at by looking sort of at the underside, which is the story that undergirds Jesus' triumphal entry, and that is the book of Exodus. Now, last we left off, we got our Israelites. They had escaped from Pharaoh. They had crossed the Red Sea. They were so excited. Oh, freedom, freedom, freedom. They were on their own, and they were out the door of Egypt. Remember we said that Israelites represent immature spiritual thoughts. And all of a sudden, these immature spiritual thoughts have gained their freedom. But here's the problem. What they didn't gain was freedom from the thought that they were still slaves. Listen to that again. They longed for freedom. They prayed for freedom. They cried for freedom. And yet, when they crossed the Red Sea, what was the very first thing they did? Oh, it was so much better in Egypt. We were so much more comfortable. Why are we out in this desert? Excuse me, wait a minute, hold it a minute. Didn't you just ask for freedom? Well, freedom is escape. And here you are. It's like, well, this isn't what we wanted. Now think about that in your own personal life. You know, you pray for something, you say, well, that's not how I wanted it. And remember we said that they were starving, and they said, you know, God, you need to provide for us, and God provided manna. And that the Hebrew word for manna means, what is it? And our prayers so often, and this is why we don't see the answers to our prayer, because when the answers come, they don't look like what we thought they should look like. They look like manna for the soul. Not for the good of your, existence, parking spaces and, lottery ticket numbers and all that kind of stuff. And so when our prayer comes about, we go, well, what is it? This isn't what I prayed for. But you see, what you pray for is soul awakening. It's freedom from the slavery of the materialistic world in which you have been captured. And to remind you once again that it is not wrong or bad or any of that stuff to have material things, to have a nice material life. That's part of who we are as human beings. We have a body that needs to be sheltered, that needs to be clothed, that needs to be taken care of. But when we become enslaved to our things, it's really, really hard to let go of the mindset of our slavery. Take, for example, you lost something precious to you. I lost a very special ring that was my grandmother's years ago. Years ago. I'm sure one of these days I'll find it. But it's not possible. It's gone. But I think about that. A lost opportunity. I could have gone to that, but I decided not to, and the opportunity went by. And we are enslaved to the idea that if only I could find the ring, if only I could go back and take that opportunity, if only I could do something, then I will be free. then my life could move on. So the idea of being still mentally enslaved is a very, very important point. And it's a very important point on our spiritual journey, because that's what keeps us from really knowing who we are as children of God. Because we say, well, I'm not good enough, and somebody told me I wasn't smart enough, and they said I couldn't sing, and they said I couldn't this, and I don't think I'm good enough or worthy enough, or I'm too tall or too short or whatever it might be. And so we become enslaved to the sounds inside of ourselves, that critical nature that keeps telling us we are not who we were created to be. We are not the truth of who we are. So what happens when the Israelites gain their freedom? Okay, let everybody go take a little walk down the park. Remember when you first left home? Remember those days? Right, no curfew. Mom and Dad are not here. I went off to college. I stayed up till maybe, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I was up late. Wow, and I didn't have to tell Mom where I was. I didn't have to get my grade. I didn't have to do anything. I was at college. And then my parents got this note. Your daughter has not been meeting her academic requirements. Oh, really? Seeing as how my parents were paying for some of my education, we had a little talking to. We had a little understanding that there's boundaries here. And even though Mom and Dad are not literally in the dorm room with me, they're very present. And so all of a sudden, there's that place in our life where we chafe against the very boundaries that we need. And it goes in every way, shape, and form. And it was true of the Israelites too. They got loose into the desert, and boy, they just had a great time. They were murmuring against Moses. They wanted to do all this stuff. They wanted to worship false idols, and they just didn't care. And God said to Moses, come on up this mountain, we got to talk. You know what? These people need boundaries. We all need boundaries to grow, because we need boundaries on two levels. We need them to create sort of a safety zone in which to grow, and then we need them to chafe against them, to make them our own. Just like when you were a child, the first, you had just typical safety zone boundaries. Don't touch the hot stove. That's a safety zone boundary, right? And then you had boundaries like when you get something from someone, you say please and thank you. You get manners boundaries. You get different kind of boundaries as you grow in your life experience. And so it is true with the Israelites. Those immature spiritual thoughts are running loose. And now God says, as a wise parent, I need to say to these people, these are your boundaries, your spiritual boundaries. And I know a lot of times we go, the 10 Commandments, they're so old. But I would like to invite you to ponder the possibility that they just might be the benchmark for your own spiritual journey, because they undergird, they are the boundary, the safety zone, the net from which you grow and chafe against and grow and chafe against and grow. So I invite you to get your handout out of the program, the little yellow one. It says the 10 rules for life. Because, see, we tend to think of these as thou shalts and nots and thou shalts do's, and so we don't get the real flavor of what these boundaries are all about. And I want you to hear them as spiritual safety zones to grow, at the very same time, spiritual challenge. All right? You shall have no other gods before me. We just said it 5 minutes ago. There's only one presence. There's only one power. Only one presence, one power. But how many people believe there's evil? How many people believe in the devil? How many people believe that those people, whoever they are, that political system, that, that army, that nation, that whatever that is, they are evil. There is no such thing as evil in the mind of God. There is only one. And that's that's number one. So what does that tell you? That's the first biggest hurdle we have spiritually. Because we look around the world and we say, whoa, wait a minute. There's problems out there. I'm not saying that they're not. What I'm saying, hear me very clearly, there is only one presence and power. That is the eternal, almighty energy of the universe. From that vibration comes the many, but there is only one vibration. There is only one moment. There's only one that you are connecting to. All right? So to believe in a power, and that's the other part of it, is that idea that something outside of ourselves has more power than we have. We've got to connect to our own inner power and say there is a presence, there is a power. And sometimes I don't understand it, and sometimes I don't see it, and sometimes I get really, really frustrated, and sometimes I look around the world and say everybody's got it greater than me, and I wish I was back in Egypt having a good time. But the bottom line is, I think one of the hardest hallmarks of our spiritual journey, no matter what, there's only one. There's only one. You shall not make for yourself an idol. Check the word idol. Although we don't make statues of gods in stone, we do make idols of things and personalities. What's the name of the show? American Idol. Isn't that odd? Now think about what happens on American Idol, okay? It's a popularity contest, right? So we've got this popularity contest going on, and I've won. I am now an idol, and people are having clotheslines in my name, and they're putting makeup in my name, and they're getting recordings in my name, and my face is on every bulletin board and every newspaper and all my Nike tennis shoes and all that stuff. What are we doing? We've made an idol. Why would you buy that? I love it when kids say, I've got to have those Michael Jordan $60 sneakers. Really? $120 sneakers. Sorry. That was when they were on sale after Christmas. You can tell how many pairs I own. All right. But think about why? What's the matter with Keds? They're right here for $29.95. Do you see what I'm saying about an idol? You don't think it touches you? You better believe it. Commandment number 2. Money, fame, and pleasure are popular gods of the present. Ooh, don't like that one. Okay, let's see if we like this one better. You shall not make wrongful use of God's name. Oh, I don't like that one any better because there are times that I connect my sense of I am, the name of God, with conditions that are not the truth of God. The truth is wholeness, light, perfection, divine. And I say, I'm poor. I'm sick. Now, it is not to say, and this is where we always, it's that finessing it, so we've got to be careful. My human body may be ill. My human checkbook may be empty. But I'm not talking about my human self. I am talking about my spiritual self, back connecting to the one. I am prosperous. I am whole. I am healthy. Because it's from that knowing of the one that it comes out into my life. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. The word Sabbath means rest. This is a conscious commitment to daily prayer. A small pause to ponder and be grateful. Have you already taken the moment, and I hope you have, to just say, thank you. Thank you for the new day. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you. I'm grateful. Thank you for the weather. Thank you for Oklahoma. Thank you for all of it. Because you didn't have to end up here. And so this moment, this breath, is that holy rest. Thank you. Gratitude, gratitude. Honor your father and mother. The spiritual fulfillment of this commandment lies in our reverence for our Creator, in whom the father quality of wisdom is joined with the mother quality of love. So it's when we honor the twofold nature of us. We are male and female, energetically. Although we may be expressing, I am expressing now as female, you may be expressing as male, that still doesn't mean we don't have the two energies within us. And we also have the human and divine. We need to honor that union. There's nothing wrong with being human. It's a great thing to have happen. But at the same time, we recognize it's a marriage. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I have to fuss with my marriage. Sometimes I have to inform my marriage of which is happening and when it's happening. But there's the honoring of the union. Always, always, always. You shall not kill. Ooh, this is good. See, because we think these commandments, oh, well, I didn't kill anybody, at least not today, at least not that you guys know of so far. It's been a good day. But this is not what we're talking about. To obey this commandment spiritually, we must be careful not to destroy another courage or faith. Do people have safe passage in your mind? Ooh, that's an ugly one. Do people have safe passage in your mind? See, I didn't say it to you that I think you're a jerk, but I'm a-thinking it. Okay, as long as I'm a-thinking it, check that one off your box. You shall not commit adultery. See, there's another one. We say, those 10 commandments, I don't do that. Thoughts of condemnation and judgment continually muddy the energy of our spiritual nature. Check that one too. You shall not steal. This one is interesting. We have each been given gifts and talents. We are not to be jealous of others and rob them of their ideas or their thunder. Have you ever had this happen? You say, wow, I'm really, really excited because I'm going to go on a trip to see my friends in Arkansas, and I've saved for this trip, and I'm going to see some relatives and friends. I'm really excited. And somebody says, Arkansas? You only going to Arkansas? Oh, listen, I've been to Arkansas, Missouri, and I've been to Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, and I've just had a great trip. Or another one. I've had knee surgery. Knee surgery? Well, I've had hip, back, knee surgery, and brain 3 times over. You're only taking one medicine? What's the matter with you? I take 10. We rob people of their thunder. Let them have their moment. How does it subtract anything from you if they've had something that they're celebrating? It doesn't, because it's not yours. It's theirs. Can't you step back and say, oh, that is so exciting. I'm glad that you're going to go see people. I know that you've wanted this to happen. Instead of saying, look at the house they bought. I wonder what he does for a living, That's where we don't give people safe passage. We steal their thunder and we kill them off. You shall not bear false witness. We tend to think of this in terms of others. I bear false witness like in a court of law. But anytime we say or act in ways that are not in integrity with our highest nature, we are bearing false witness. By what we say and what we do is not in integrity with who we are as a spiritual being. And I think we all get caught in that, in the judgment, in the condemnation, in the hurriedness. We don't act from our highest and best. We're tired, we're frustrated. But once again, the commandment calls us to the foundations, to the boundaries which we can safely grow, to own it. In the traditional sense, we call it confession, or being convicted, if that's another word that speaks to you. Something within our heart says, we're not in alignment with the truth of what we know. And last but not least, you shall not covet. As we grow spiritually, we realize that we never need the good that another has. All good is from God, whose presence is constantly with us. Nothing can derive us except our inability to receive. So the 10 Commandments that Moses brought back, he gave to the people as something that was precious and special. It was a way in which God was nurturing them. God was helping them like a divine parent in a way, because that's sort of the analogy that we see in the book of Exodus, giving them boundaries, giving them rules and regulations. And at one point in time, that is important to us, to know the 7 steps to salvation, to know how do I get to heaven, to know what are the steps for this or that or the other thing. But here's how it swings back. Jesus comes to Jerusalem to fulfill the law. What does that mean? What does that mean? We just read about that law. A law that's going to challenge us our entire human spiritual journey. He tells the woman at the well in Samaria in the Gospel of John, he said, one day, this is his vision. This is his insight. This is why we follow and try to understand this incredible enlightened being. He said, one day we're not going to need this mountain. One day we're not going to need these rules. One day we will simply worship God in spirit and in truth. One day. One day we'll get it. It's a day that probably all of us won't ever know in human form, because we constantly need to go to those boundaries. We constantly need to go back to those commandments, holding ourselves accountable. And that's what Jesus was doing on that Palm Sunday day. He was fulfilling the law. The law was go to Jerusalem, sacrifice, experience the Passover. And he comes to us and he says, the law has now been fulfilled. Because what I want you to understand is it's not about sacrifice. It's not about laws. It's not about rules and regulations. Those are the boundaries. Those are the foundational work on which we stand. And now, as we step forth into a new life, that new life is about spirit. That new life is about truth. That new life is about living from within to without. Thank you, and God bless.